Hey Lisa, good afternoon.
Hi, Katie. How are you? Happy
Good.
New Year.
Happy New Year. I'm so excited to do this webinar with you today. Thank you again for popping on.
You bet. Me too. It's going to be fun.
I cannot wait. We're going to talk about the advertising compliance, updated rules and regulations from the SEC, and show everyone a little bit about Red Marker today. It should be a good webinar.
Good stuff. It'll be fun.
So for anyone who is joining us and logging on, Lisa and I will be talking about some of the new rules from the SEC, give you a little background on ourselves, and we'll even run through a demonstration of Red Marker for you. So it should be an exciting time. A little bit about me. My name is Katie Daley. I am from Red Marker. I'm the VP of Sales here right outside of New York City. I have been in the legal tech space for over 7 years now. And I help large companies, small companies investigate legal tech, advertising compliance solutions from the time that they want to know more about artificial intelligence and identifying risk, all the way up through implementation, customer success, and helping them to expand their model in the future. Outside of my professional life, I am a competitive bodybuilder and nutritionist, so all things health and wellness related.
It's great, Katie. I love that about you. I'm Lisa Roth. I'm the president of Monahan & Roth. We're a compliance consulting firm based in San Diego, California. As a compliance professional, you probably expect me to say that it's my job to say no. I'm not going to say that. The way I think of it is it's my job to say how, and that pretty much defines what I do professionally. In my past, I have made that a reality as the co-founder of a technology company, a technology that was designed to automate compliance workflows, branch examinations, and so on. So I'm here today because Red Marker has a truly revolutionary way to modernize advertising review that I think is really exciting. It doesn't just track the work of the professionals, but actually performs the work of the professionals using artificial intelligence. So obviously we'll get into that later, but that's why I'm here today. And outside of work, Katie volunteered. I'll volunteer as well. I'm an avid cyclist and a competitive rower.
Both very hard. I'm not good with cardio, so kudos to you.
What a team we would be.
So for today, you heard a little bit about the hosts, and what we'll be chatting about in more detail is the then and now. So what was marketing and advertising before, and what is it today? The new rules and regulations from the SEC, and more future thinking. So embracing and implementing new technology, and how can you effectively use it within your different teams to upskill everybody in the company. Of course, at the end, we'll run through a quick Q&A. So if you do have any questions, feel free to submit them in the chat and we will get to them. So let's start with the way that advertising compliance and marketing is changing.
Yeah, so I mean, everyone on this call has surely noticed the fast-moving transition from all things paper to all things digital, especially now, fueled by the pandemic and validated by our success, I believe, in the work from home evolution. Business is truly being transformed, and we are adapting in true professional form. For their part, the regulators are also evolving their practices to adapt to the new normal. Their new normal, remote exams, Zoom-orama instead of conference calls. I mean, at the end of the day, I'd argue we actually see more of our regulators right now than we have in the past. And the new regulations continue to emerge. In the presentation today, we're going to position the SEC's new advertising rules to demonstrate how a new approach to compliance can provide an efficient and effective and scalable platform for adopting the rules. And you'll hear that from me, which you don't often hear from a compliance professional, scalable, efficient, and so on. But we're going to show you that it can be true. And I'm really anxious about that. So it just seems like a really great time to capitalize on the opportunity of technology. And as we run through the presentation today, we'll kind of set the stage. I'll talk a little bit about the rules. Katie will inject the functionality of the technology, and we'll show you in the end how to meet the challenge of the new advertising rules and the review criteria using artificial intelligence trained by the industry.
Absolutely. And the way that this has all been brought on, it's marketing has changed dramatically from what it was 10, 5, even 2 years ago. With the introduction of social media platforms, investment applications, even personal banking apps, the marketing landscape has evolved into something bigger than I think any one of us could have imagined. Firstly, we have more content being produced on a more regular basis. Lisa, the clients that I speak with, over the past 12 months alone, they've been struggling to keep up with the demand from their marketing teams. Now, I don't want to beat a dead horse and talk about the new normal and COVID, but it should be noted that it's changed our consumption habits.
Yes.
We're spending a lot more time online than we really ever have. And many companies are capitalizing on that. They're asking the marketing teams to keep the business running by remaining current and topical and at the forefront of all of their clients' minds. It's estimated that marketing budgets are going to increase substantially over the next 5 years by $10 billion in the US alone. And wow. I don't know about you, but I don't know any compliance or legal team that will be able to keep up with that amount of content and demand without investing in smart technology.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's going to be a necessity. And on the other side, the SEC and FINRA and even the states, they are also rapidly expanding their reach. They're actually leveraging our internet presence as their new playground. Back in the day, our communications were directly from the investment professional to the client. Mass advertising meant sending a lot of letters or maybe bulk emails, but still the communications weren't publicly discoverable.
Yep.
That's not the way it works anymore. Now our professional presence is on media that's readily and instantly available to broad audiences. Those audiences, of course, including the regulators. So there are definitely pros and cons, but there's no turning back. As you mentioned, it's a wheel in motion and it's going to continue to roll. So I think it's really important to focus on what's positive about that. The opportunity to market more creatively with more precision and more timeliness is compelling. And the speed and the volume present challenges to the reviewers. There's a lot on the shoulders of compliance already, let alone getting that job done. But in the end, the communications are live, they're interactive, they're time sensitive, and we're going to have to find ways to accommodate those pressures. The business unit demands it of us, and it's a fun place to be in the movement, the forward movement of that process. So I would just say, hooray. There are new and exciting ways for compliance to actually train technology to play a meaningful role in balancing that workload, and I think we should embrace it.
I absolutely agree. Like you said, there's so many new exciting tech platforms for both the marketing and the legal reviewers to embrace. When you mentioned the pressures that both of those teams are facing to ensure that not only communications comply with the different regulators, but they are released in a timely manner, that's the exact bottleneck that we are trying to solve for all of our clients at Redmarker.
Right.
And although everyone is slightly unique in the way that they adapt the technology and leveling up their teams, a lot of them are solving this common problem. It's an opportunity to push your company into the future, be on the forefront of adopting artificial intelligence models across many departments. I like to say, modern problems require modern solutions. Mm-hmm. So we all need to embrace this modern new normal. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really what the SEC is addressing, this modern landscape and how advertising review and marketing has changed over the past few years.
Indeed. Yeah, so let's just talk a little bit about that. We promised a little bit of compliance. I'm a compliance nerd at the end of the day. So let's talk just a little bit about the rules. And before we get all excited about the technology, let's put it into context and really imagine how it'll play out. I think the SEC's new advertising rule is perfect to set that context. In fact, it's really important to mention that talk about modernization. The SEC's new rules for advertising are the first substantive amendments to the advertising rules since its inception in 1961. Really long time ago. It's been a long time coming, and thankfully the SEC has given the industry an 18-month compliance timeline, which is great. But in my experience, my clients and colleagues are really anxious to implement these new rules. Importantly, they adopt a principles-based approach. We'll talk about that in a moment. And so that's a new facet of the rule. And the new rule also requires that advertisements are reviewed and approved by a designated party before distribution. Now, this is a new concept to investment advisors. It's in place in practice in some firms, but it's a new concept with respect to rulemaking. So broker-dealers will recognize it, of course, but a new framework for investment advisors. And under the new framework, controlling costs and maintaining a reasonable time frame for review and release of approved materials, and generally, maintaining your sanity, is definitely going to require a new operational vision for deployment for advertising review compliance folks. So, in general, yes, we're talking about a new rule for investment advisors, but all of these concepts are the same concepts for broker dealers as well. So BDs, bear with us. There's lots in this for you as well.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the new rule that we've been referencing from the SEC.
Yeah, so specifically, so you can put this into context with the demo that will follow. The new rule, as I said, brings together these two universes. The stars between broker-dealers and investment advisors are aligning. Broker-dealers are going to readily recognize the similarities between this new rule and FINRA's Rule 2210, which is good, I think, for dual registrants, at least in so much as many of us have dueling capacities, or I should say complementary capacities, not dueling. But for investment advisors, it's a new landscape. And for all of us, it's a great opportunity to envision how modernization really can benefit us as firms. So substantively, is it really new? Probably not entirely new. We all know we have to tell the truth, the whole truth. We have to substantiate our claims. We have to balance statements of performance. We have to consider our audience and all of that. But there definitely is change in the new rule, primarily that it reflects the modern methods of communication. So we're locked into that time frame in so much as those communications have to flow quickly. And the new rule is substantially flexible. It gives us opportunities to actually employ new methods of communications and review, and that's a really important facet. So importantly, it replaces those early prohibitions, no testimonials, no past performance, and those very specific what you can't do, with a principles-based approach that introduces new guidelines. For instance, materiality, reasonableness, fairness, balance. Each of those concepts is part of the new rule, and that makes it far more subjective, certainly a broader scope, lots of room for interpretation. I like to say that it's less of what you say, which used to be the rule. Say this, don't say that. Now it's more of what the audience hears us say.
Yep.
And that leaves a lot of room for interpretation. So, in this principles-based environment, really the art and the science of advertising review are coming together. The firm has to bend to the science. We've got to accommodate the rule, capture those fundamental concepts and apply them and so on. But the firm has an opportunity to create its own art. And that's where I think the principles of compliance and implementation really come together in a meaningful way. So importantly, as well, the business units, they want us to do both of those things. They want us to comply and allow them to be artful in their creative promotional materials. And so I'd say, as I introduced, it's really important that we don't say no to any of this, that let's help the business unit understand how we can do this the right way.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The how is one of the most important elements, especially when you have the opportunity here to customize the how,
Mhm.
according to your principles and the way that you want to approach these new rules.
Correct. Correct. I mean, we're talking about the tone at the top. This is a familiar concept for us. But when it comes to principles, that
Mhm.
tone at the top, or that culture of compliance, become critically important to the output from the business unit and the marketing units.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about that how and how compliance professionals can enforce these new principles.
Yeah, so the principles fall on our shoulders. I love that heading. The principles follow the principles. We know that. We know that as much as the business unit wants to creatively market, and the point of marketing is promotion, that the concepts fall on our shoulders to establish those fundamental principles. So we have to decide where we're going to dedicate our time, and the secret sauce that we bring to the table as professionals is not performing those mundane check-a-box compliance reviews, the taglines and the logos and those things. It's really in understanding the nuances, the placement, the font, the positioning of images vis-a-vis the content that we want to be portrayed, and that's no easy task. That's highly dependent on staffing, on volume, on workloads. And Katie, I bet you have a lot to say about, I'm guessing you have some statistics on the size of that challenge, knowing the work that you've put into understanding this marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. We've grabbed example numbers from a few of our clients, and here's what some of the firms are telling me. They can have a ratio of 50 content creators per one reviewer.
Wow.
During the height of their busy season, with a yearly review average of 8,000 pieces of content per expert.
Wow.
If you break that down into a smaller number, that's over 31 pieces of content to review per day.
Wow.
And as you know, Lisa, many of these experts and compliance professionals, they might have other priorities within the yeah, people are competing for their time.
Yes.
It's virtually impossible to keep up with these numbers, let alone an increase, in these numbers that we'll be seeing in 2021 and beyond. And
right.
It's the beauty of finding technology that can do the things like you said, the mundane tasks, the easy, low-hanging fruit, so that they can really focus on the higher level risk. And one way our clients are keeping up with the demand of these new regulations and new marketing approaches is by using artificial intelligence. And I'll show you how some of these features work during the live demo, but this kind of gives a peek behind the curtain, right, into some of the risk identification models we've created within our platform. So I like to say we are finding the risks that a machine can identify so that your experts can focus on finding the risks that a human can better identify. And really easy examples, a machine can identify variations in font size if you have a minimum standard for how large or small a disclaimer can be. A machine can identify problems with logos if it's not approved, with direct words in your disclaimers. And that is not really a great use of time for a compliance professional to be spending. They should be focusing more on the overall context in the piece.
Yes, but it's such an important part of the ad review. You're right. It shouldn't be the focus of our time in reviewing, but it's fundamental to the review process, and so it's necessary. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
It's if you can automate and have a model find these risks that you're looking for in a common and an acceptable manner, then you can better spend your time either for those competing priorities or reviewing more pieces of content, because we know it's going to increase in the next coming years. And I'll show you how some of these work in real time, but just a little idea of some of the AI that we are using at Redmarker.
Cool.
And a big key that we talk about with our clients is future-proofing their process. Everyone wants to solve today's problems, but a lot of companies are not ready to think about tomorrow or next year's problems yet, especially in times like a pandemic when we're not expecting these problems to arise. But it's really important to keep that top of mind and future-proof all your different tech so that you can scale and you can solve those issues ahead of time.
Mhm.
We did some research into our clients and their legal checklists that they provided for us. And over 50% of all of these marketing checklists are disclaimers that can be standardized. And that's a really easy way to find a quick gain in efficiency by using something like red marker and artificial intelligence to find incorrect or missing disclaimers.
And while you mention that, Katie, I'm just imagining the real life scenario where a licensing or registration or a name change or a jurisdiction change or something happens that causes an evolution in that disclaimer, and then the application of that evolution over materials that already exist in the universe is so hard to manage. And I'm imagining this use case. Using artificial intelligence to identify those instances.
Perfect example. Exactly right. Another small stat that we're seeing, 30 times faster. Wow. An automated compliance review is 30 times faster than a human manual review. It wow. is the single easiest way to gain efficiency in that job. The other piece of it is using data. 76% of marketing and legal teams are not using technology, performance dashboards, or behavioral data to understand their processes. And that's a really big opportunity. If you have something that can show you productivity down to the individual content creator, across the entire department, into 2 different departments, this is an easy way to shine the light into the different bottlenecks of the process so that you can optimize further and get everybody upskilled in the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I get that. Identifying where those log jams occur and overcoming them is a huge step that just can't imagine doing that very effectively manually without just throwing more people at it or more time.
Exactly right. And as you know, more people means more salary, means more money out the door. When you have a machine that can offload a lot of that work, you're actually saving costs, which is what, everyone at the top of these organizations wants to hear. Being able to do more with less so that you don't have to keep throwing bodies at it.
For sure.
So when we talk about these processes and when I'm meeting with my clients, I like to start at the most basic level, which is really with the content creators. Everyone has a different way that they work. So we start here with how do your content creators know what they can and cannot say or do? And when they're finding out this information, is it a centralized database? Being able to look for the correct disclaimers, correct verbiage or language, that means that the reviewers are going to spend a lot less time on the back end of the process, cleaning up maybe the different things that are non-compliant or messy, that they really shouldn't have to. It can be within that first line review.
That slows down the creators as well if they have to be thinking about that instead of the overall impact of their images and their marketing. Interesting.
Absolutely. And then we move on to the actual review of the marketing and sales collateral. So how does content get delivered? That's a really easy one that most people address, right? The workflow. But then if we drill down even further, how about manually reviewing that content? Do you know how long it takes for your average reviewer to view one piece? Does it differ for the different types of marketing? Do you have a tool that can flag this risk for you easily? And this is really where I see the biggest gap in efficiency, and it's exactly where red marker comes in. Many companies focus on that workflow and the marketing or the sale to legal handover, but there's a large gap in the actual manual review space. So by having a tool that can automatically annotate and highlight and identify risk on your behalf, you're speeding up that most time-consuming and riskiest part of the process.
Right, you're right. I wasn't thinking about that. I mean, the the modern review technologies that are available to firms are generally workflow technologies that allow the reviewer to capture their work and pass it along to the next step in the hierarchy, but they don't actually do any of the work for you. They just help you record how you've done your work and move it along.
Exactly right. And I'll show you how that looks in just a moment. And lastly, the reporting metrics. Reporting is not only for auditing purposes. I think that's the first thing that people think of when they hear reporting and repository. But it's really important for scalability and training as well. You need to understand where the most and the least efficient part of your processes are in order to grow as a company. And I'll give you a quick example. One of my clients regularly uses individual KPI reporting to see how many pieces of content are being created, but now they can drill down to the individual content creator and even see how risky their average piece is. Imagine being able to upskill all of your teams by saying, hey, this is the risk, this is the exposure that you're creating now. This is how you can easily fix it, so we create more compliant content from the start. That way you don't go through several rounds of changes and you don't spend a ton of time on each piece. It gets to the market faster, which I think is that win-win for both sides.
Yeah, for sure. That interaction is an important part of the dynamic between compliance and marketing in general. And so taking that out and leveling the playing field really makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. So now everyone probably has a good idea for the behind the scenes and how to look at this, but let's talk about the implementation, because that's one of the most essential parts for adopting technology.
Yeah, that's where the rubber hits the road, is getting that technology in and getting it working. So, I mean, my head's spinning. I'm guessing that your guys' heads are spinning as well with all the possibilities, but you know, and it doesn't have to be that the driver is the new SEC regulation. Let's just think about the modernization of communications and marketing in general, what was then and what is now. Those concepts of scalability and consistency, which I really love, and speed are all really, really exciting. And I'd be very anxious to fit those into the mundane world of advertising reviews. So that's all really great. So, and you know, when you think about implementation now, there's a couple of strategies. You know, approach number one is to improve the checklist, the advertising checklist, if you have one. In my experience, actually, firms really don't have a checklist, and when they do, the checklist is really long, and it's really unruly. And updating the checklist doesn't necessarily enhance any aspect of the review process. It just makes it more and more mundane and time consuming. So that's not really something we need to hang on to as a skill. And then if the checklist doesn't exist, which is more commonly the case, then all of that intelligence is institutionalized in the brains of your reviewers. So when that reviewer's out, you know, someone else's skill set applies, and there goes consistency right out the window. So really all of those characteristics, the speed, the consistency, scalability, they're all really important and compelling. So they all lend us to your neck of the woods, Katie, to technology.
You're right. And if it's not a checklist or a new rule that's a motivator, a lot of it can just be the stats that we talked about. Yeah. Are you prepared when things go from 8,000 pieces of marketing material per year to 10,000,
right,
you know, or 12,000? Right. And by being able to anticipate the future changes and having a scalable model, you're not spending time recreating the wheel every 3 or 4 years to keep up with technology, because it does move very fast.
Right, right. Or the content changes, you know, keeping up with the corporate mergers and the language nuances and the new business initiatives. All of those are important. They're regularly reoccurring challenges that the compliance team has to address.
100%. And we see it all the time with our clients. And then the last is having custom technology. I think there's an opportunity for firms to move away from an out-of-the-box solution that is kind of standard no matter who's using it to something highly customized and trainable. And that's really the benefit of if we merge that checklist that's in the expert reviewers' minds and putting it into the practicality of a trainable model. Wow. You don't have to worry about in the future if something happens to that expert reviewer. When you hire someone new, you now have something to train them with and show them this is how we approach our risk here. This is how we interpret different regulations. And it allows everybody to be upskilled and on the same page in the process.
Yeah, so that's the concept I was talking about earlier with principles-based regulation is you have an opportunity to actually put your culture and your strategies into that framework and establish what is your tone at the top or your particular culture. And that's a great way to get that done.
And you'll see a little bit about the customizations that we can do in the demonstration. So I'll show you how it actually works in real time. We'll upload a piece of content so you can get a look at the real life red marker solution here.
Cool. It's like a field trip.
So let me start by making this full screen for everybody so that you can see what we're actually uploading. And we use a cloud-based solution. So you can imagine you're just logging in with a username and password. And right away, you're taking to almost like a to-do list, right? This is your home screen. So if we work from the left to the right, on the left-hand side, you'll notice document title. That's literally just the name of the document that was uploaded. So really easy. In the middle, you see status, pending in this light orange color, and reviewed in blue. So again, it's showing you what is on your to-do list for the day, what documents still need to be assessed for risk. And then, of course, owner and creation time and date. But let's pretend like we're uploading a new document that just got sent over. Now, I'm sure this feels very familiar to you. You can drag and drop it, just like Google Drive or Dropbox. You can select a file manually from your desktop. So let's upload a direct mailer. We were talking about this earlier. So in case you didn't take a look at the document beforehand, no problem. You have a little preview screen so you can say, all right, this is a financial advice direct mailer. It's going out to so-and-so avenues. On the left-hand side, you'll notice categories. Now, categories can be a few different things. They can be marketing piece type. So a direct mailer is going to have a different set of rules to a TV commercial. TV commercial is going to have a different set of rules from your quarterly commentaries or updates. So this allows us to drill into the different types of rules that you have set up. It can even be your different product types. For today's demo, we're going to select financial advice and review document in blue. Now, the platform does a few things for us. Right away, we are OCRing everything within this document. So not only are we looking and addressing the risk within the text, we are also finding the risk on the text overlays and the images and even logos themselves. The second thing that we're doing is automatically highlighting where the risk is within this document.
Oh, wow.
And you'll notice as soon as I selected on this, we have a drop-down with canned feedback. So it's really doing three different things for us here. Number one, it's finding the risk. Number two, it's showing you where is the risk located, highlighting it. And three is annotating on the document. So it's telling either that content creator or sales professional, whoever this may be, how they can update this so that it is compliant moving forward.
Wow.
And this is why we're saying it's 30 times faster than manual review.
Right. I'm imagining myself highlighting that and then inserting a comment and writing my comment. So, wow, that's pretty neat.
Exactly right. And, we're not just looking for disclaimers. We've talked about that quite a few times. We're looking for words such as this, independently. We can find custom risk for our clients because everyone interprets things differently and you have a different risk tolerance and a risk appetite. So this is a really easy example. We're saying that we operate independently from the other institutions and major banks. And right away, red marker is saying, in general, we're trying to avoid these terms, such as impartial, independent, or unbiased. So we need to review whether or not we are even allowed to say this. Another really easy one, you'll notice that we have FINRA licensed highlighted. So if you're saying, well, why is this risky? The platform is saying, well, it appears that we're suggesting an endorsement, right? We're saying we're FINRA licensed. That's way you can rest assured that our services are compliant. So this is very risky to be putting out to the market. And the AI has flagged it for us automatically and is even going so far to tell you how to update it, just like a compliance expert would. Now, the last little example that I'll give you before we move on, our margin loan products is guaranteed to all of our clients. Now, in some cases, maybe you do have, giveaways or guaranteed on certain products, and others you do not. So if you're telling us it is not guaranteed for X and X line, in this case, our margin loans, then it will flag automatically for you that this is indeed risky and you need to remove it. Although nothing is flagged within the images, you can imagine if you have certain rules that you cannot show, I'm just going to use this example because it's right here, a bag of money. We can find risks like this for you as well. We can even go so far for dates and sample calculations. So all of this is completely tailored to who we're working with and how they want to find that risk, going back to the how in the process.
Wow, great.
Once you're done, you mark it as reviewed. So that's how it changes the status on the home screen you saw. And it's just an annotated PDF that you can download and deliver back to that content creator, that person in marketing, and say, these are the things that are wrong. This is exactly how you fix it.
Cool.
The other part of the platform is website reporting. And I won't go too in detail with this, but just to give you a quick idea of how this works. This is the other side of the equation, right? A lot of people are focused on finding risks within their documents. And we often forget about finding risks that are already published and live 6 months, a year, 2 years from now when things change. And that's a really onerous task. So this allows you to find risk on your domain. Maybe it's like a third-party domain. You can even use our domain discovery tool. And what that allows us to do is search for, I'm going to use red marker as an example, red marker plus the words free or guaranteed or secure. So you're finding risk that you didn't even know was published and online in the market. And that's a really, major benefit for a lot of our compliance teams to limit their exposure.
Wow, that's powerful.
So that's a quick overview of a demonstration for you. Of course, we can go more in depth, and we're happy to do custom demos if someone wants to see something on their paper and their marketing collateral. But now let's talk about the actual implementation and how to put this from the theoretical down to the practical and get something like this implemented. So we talked a little bit earlier about the content creators, and that's the easiest place to start. Some of our clients want a first-line review implemented because they want all of the easy things automated and addressed before it even gets flipped over to compliance. Mm-hmm. So that's a really simple place to start, making sure you're standardizing the way that content is being created within those sales and marketing teams. Mm-hmm. The second step in the process is that delivery. And, I think that this is really where most people focus and they get hung up is on that workflow about how it gets delivered to the legal and compliance teams. But that's just really one step in the process overall. So it's important to standardize the way that you're sending this to the different departments, because if you have and someone emailing something and then another person has to upload it into a formal workflow solution, things are going to fall through the cracks. You should have one version of the truth at all times, one central database where things can get delivered. And the next step is that checklist. You talked about this a lot, Lisa. Is that checklist in your experts' minds, or is it written down somewhere? And if it is written down somewhere, is it too cumbersome for a human to actually go through one by one? Can this be automated by a machine? So those are the type of questions that we're trying to help our clients answer. And if they do not have any sort of checklist, if they don't have anything written down, that's fine too. We can help them take it out of their minds, extract that knowledge from the experts and write it down in a standardized way. So when someone leaves an organization or they're trying to train new staff, it's there. You have a database and you have that cultural principle, like you were saying, about how they address risk and how they find it.
Mm-hmm.
Tech, of course, introducing technology, that's what this is all about. Using tech to streamline your review and gain efficiency. And the last little piece is monitoring. If you have performance data, you can address that risk at a larger scale. You can look into the productivity of your different teams and find what are the easiest things that we can automate. Do we have a training opportunity somewhere? Because one disclaimer or one thing keeps getting missed that can be really easily solved. But you can't do those things without a sort of dashboard or platform. So it's really important to have.
It's great.
So we've done a lot of talking so far. I can appreciate it's probably information overload for some of the viewers and what we've been saying. But I think for both of us, Lisa, the overarching theme is really that future-proofing and that upskilling across both departments. Things are going to keep changing. Even though this is the first update made by the SEC in how many years, decades, things are going to keep evolving because technology moves at a rapid pace. So if you have something that allows for that promotability, scalability, growth from within, you'll be at a much better spot to upskill everybody across your departments to address this risk.
Yeah, it seems like the perfect opportunity to take the mundane, repetitious component out of advertising review and actually give the reviewer an opportunity to really apply their actual skills, and then the converse, to get somebody on board and give them the opportunity to learn and train efficiently. And I can't think of a better motivator for even the creators to get on the program than to have that timeliness and efficiency and consistency, because you hear that too from the folks who are creating the materials, is a frustration about, well, gosh, the last time I did this, the disclaimer was different, and how would I know? Well, they don't have to worry about that anymore. So it really is getting the reviewers and the creators on the same page. Absolutely.
We have a quote on the website from one of our clients saying that it automates the boring stuff, which is a little harsh, but valid at the same time.
Very appropriate. Very true. Very true.
And it makes everybody else, everyone's happier in the long run if you're really focusing on the high level stuff and things are getting out quicker.
Yeah, for sure. Sure.
So this is where we can open it up to any, questions that maybe submit or that you may have about the platform. A quick one is what type of cloud do we use? And we use AWS, Amazon Web Services. They're industrial grade servers. They are the most secure, and we can run up an instance, for example, in the US with myself here, in the UK, or in Australia with our APAC clients and dev team.
Great. I have another question here that I see, and that is, does RedMarker integrate with workflows? Which is a really good question. How does that work? Many firms have legacy technologies or existing platforms. How does that work with RedMarker?
I think that's probably the number one question we get in all of our demonstrations, because most people do have a formal workflow, and we have an open API. So we are workflow agnostic. I like to do a quick dive into what type of workflow that our client can be using. Is it customized? Did someone in-house make it? Is it a third-party vendor? But we can integrate into virtually any software. It really just comes down to, are they open to integrating with us?
Oh, wow. Oh, and here's one. What about the type of AI? I guess that's a really good question. Is there a name or a particular methodology that Red Marker applies?
Yeah, artificial intelligence and AI, I feel like it's, the newest buzzword. Everybody's saying that they use AI, but it really comes down to what type of model and is it customized, right? So we use natural language processing and a hybrid of machine learning models.
Oh.
And this allows us to train the artificial intelligence to not only look for standard risks like free, secure, guaranteed, but that custom level that we were talking about. For AI to just be able to understand and read content, it has an accuracy rating of about 80 to 90%. So then to layer that additional custom risk on top, we have an accuracy rating of 94%, which is extremely high, and it's a number that we're really proud of, which proves to us that the AI models are working correctly and they're finding the risks that our clients are looking to identify.
Oh, that's great. Great track record.
If any other questions, pop up as you're viewing this presentation, you can feel free to email Lisa or myself. If you want to see a custom demonstration or talk about Red Marker in more detail, happy to jump on a call with you. Lisa, thank you again for joining me today and being my compliance expert. You carry such amazing knowledge, and I appreciate all of your input today.
Yeah, I was really happy to join you, to see you again, Katie, and to see the demo. I haven't seen it in a while, so it was really great.
Thank you so much, and I hope everyone watching has a great rest of their day.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care.